Look at Ozzy Osbourne right now. Like holy.
Yeah, yeah.
I watched an interview with him lately, and
I haven't seen him lately.
someone asked him just point blank, "Are you sober now?" And he looked at the camera and he's like, "Well, yeah," and just like did his Aussie mumble for 13 seconds, and then she was like, "Okay."
Take that as a no.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Guitar Origins podcast, powered by AIMusicLessons.com, the site that teaches you guitar. I'm your host, Greg Burlett, and today I have the pleasure of speaking with GBliz. Now, you may have seen this guy's videos on TikTok before. He records guitar solos over songs that don't have guitar solos in them, like pop, hip-hop, R&B tracks. He's also a producer, and he's recorded a handful of songs with Pitbull, and he was the guitarist in the band that backed Doja Cat at the Grammys this year. How cool is that? Also, he's just a really down-to-earth guy and was just really fun to talk to. I feel like if I was at the pub late at night and needed a ride home, I could give him a call and he'd have my back. So, let's go.
AI Music Lessons presents GBliz.
Hey, well, you're a really kick-ass guitarist.
Thank you.
I've checked out all your TikTok videos, and man, you're a really, really good soloer. It's crazy.
Thank you, man.
Do you still practice?
To be honest with you, I was gonna say I do, but it's like it's different than what it was. It used to be regimented. It used to be like I was homeschooled actually when I was young, like before high school, and so it was part of like my little like list of things to do. So it would be like math and blah blah blah, and like practice guitar for 30 minutes at least, and like um there was like times where like my interest wavered as like a normal teenager or whatever, or like maybe it was more like preteen. It was like preteen because my parents were still like paying for lessons at the time. I was very privileged to have them like pay for private lessons for me. And like, there was times where they would be like, we're not going to pay for your lessons if you don't practice. And I loved it enough always to be like, oh shit, all right, I got to practice. They got to hear me noodle
Putting
around.
down the parental ultimatum.
But that was rare. Usually I like, I loved it. I'm just like all things creative. So like, it's easy to get bored if you're not like finding something new. So like that was kind of
Right.
before I discovered, like R&B guitar, which I'm sure we'll get to talking about. But yeah, like once I discovered like alternate stuff, it was like a re-love, for the instrument.
So just like that specific genre and that type of guitar playing just really sparked your passion and got you super amped up about it, hey?
Yeah, definitely. That was what was like, oh, this is your thing.
What is it about R&B music and I guess R&B pop? Because you do a lot of I guess R&B has kind of become pop
Yeah,
these days.
definitely.
There's a lot of that kind of music out there. So what is it specifically about that genre?
I think what a good way to sum what I am up or what I like up is like soul, like anything that has like soul in it. So not necessarily the genre, but just like, most of the pop I've been involved with has like a soulful element. And like sometimes that'll come out, like I'll be working on a pop session and I'll do something that's like soulful and people will be like, that's too R&B or that's like too country or that's too, and I'll be like, country, what? I don't even like listen or play country, but I understand it's like bluesy element or something. Sometimes it has to be like cookie cutter, but for me it's just the relation. Like, I mean, soul is very much so a good description because it's like the relationship of that music to your soul. Like anything that's like cookie cutter or kind of like lab made, so to speak, or overly digital. I mean, I love digital everything. I love the capabilities, but I think there has to be like a life to the music. So I just tend to gravitate towards what makes me feel a certain way, makes my soul, on a cellular or deeper than a cellular level. Yeah. So
That's sweet. That's a really interesting description of soul because like when I think of soul, I think back to like 1970s and
Of
like the
course.
origin of funk music and stuff like that, like really groovy bass lines. Like that's what I think of soul, and like very soulful singing, almost like church
Definitely.
singing
And I
kind of
have that
stuff,
background
right?
for sure. I have that background. But also there could be soul in like 808s, and there could be a soulless 808s too, you know? I just think that if you pay attention and to how you react, you know, like on a physical level and how something makes you feel like or like deeper than the physical, you know, I think that you can kind of tell like, oh shoot, like this is like a copy versus like a from the heart kind of thing or something like that. So there could be rock, a soul in rock, and it's not soulful rock, but it just has like I just did like a Paramore TikTok today where I did like R&B guitar chords under like Haley's acapella, and it like changed the whole mood of everything. But like it's still like so much soul in that song, whether I added that or not, you know.
Which song is it?
Ain't it fun? I mean, pretty much all of their stuff has like soul to me.
Yeah, I love Paramore. I've always been super into them.
They're amazing. I mean, for a band to last that long, you know, in this day and age.
So where do you think that guitar fits in R&B music these days?
You know, I think it fits. It's like big. It's actually big right now. It's like it's kind of in R&B and also pop in the sense of like a Polo G, or like it's like rap has become pop. You know, become the most popular. That's what pop means. I think most people realize that by now, that there's like a genre of pop which is like Lady Gaga and Taylor Swift, but that always tends to pull from whatever's culturally relevant anyway, you know. But yeah, as far as like its place, I think that it's there's multiple places that it holds, but I would say that right now, like in a lot of popular music, you're hearing the guitar as the main instrument instead of piano or instead of like synthesizer or something like that. Like you're hearing the chords being played, and it's like almost like, wow, that's the same progression as like a Green Day song, but now it's like Trippie Redd or Juice World or someone, and like the tide kind of changes, and now I think it's like almost straight up trendy to have guitar chords like in your music. I think it's less trendy to have a guitar solo, which I'm trying to, you know, incorporate
I see that
tastefully.
you're trying to bring it back. I freaking love
Thank
it.
you.
Like just watching, listening to what a guitar solo in like Justin Bieber Peaches would be like, because it's not there, and you know it's like it probably won't be on
A
the
lot of
album
times it's
cut.
outrageous, yeah. Like I did like Ice Cube.
It's not
like,
outrageous though.
it's
It
not.
sounds so good.
I did like a Meg Thee Stallion like one that was outrageous, but it worked still somehow. But it was like crazy. It wasn't even like a big key center for me to go off of. I had to kind of just decide.
So why do you think that guitar solos died in pop music?
I think a part of it, um, and I love rap, you know, I love rappers, but I think like part of it was like the rap feature almost. That kind of did away with the bridge and the guitar solo, you know. It would be like, oh, we'll have a feature on this, you know. And I think that might have played a role. I don't know timeline wise when that started to become popular. I just don't have that much like of a history memorized, but I think that had a part to play in it. I don't know I don't know if you could tell me, but like I'm not sure when it died. You know what I mean? I'm not sure when it stopped. It was before the 90s, right? Like the 80s it probably died.
Yeah, like we were talking in a previous podcast about 90s pop, and they always had Spanish acoustic guitar solos all the time. Like Savage Garden, just about like, and you remember them, you're laughing, you remember them, right? Like they're super prevalent. You would just break down, it go from the bridge, and then bam, Spanish guitar
Santana
solo.
probably had something to do with that influence on that too.
Yeah, oh yeah, totally. Actually, that's a good point. And then after that, solos were kind of relegated to, I guess, like the formation of indie rock, and obviously the continuation of the punk movement in like the early 2000s, and like starting with Green Day and grunge being super popular. Although even in Nirvana, you don't hear guitar solos, you know, like the solo is Kurt's like grungy vocals,
Or like
right?
uh you know, just a two note.
Yeah, just a 2-note thing. Yeah,
And
exactly.
then like, you know, you would Chili Peppers and stuff, like you would have it's like, you know, there's like moments, it's like a part, it became a part, and then that I think got even it went from a solo to like a part of a song to like not even happening, you know. But like you hear like
Right.
I don't know, like Shawn Mendes, like bang, 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 bang. It's just like a little part.
Yeah,
It's just like a small break instead of a solo. It's like, you know, part of a hook or
totally.
something. But
Same deal with Bruno Mars too. Bruno Mars has a lot of those kind of catchy little licks and riffs throughout. Some of them on guitar, some of them on keyboard or synth or something like that. But I feel like that's where it's kind of sitting in music.
yeah, absolutely. I think there's a fear of losing a general audience when you go too musical. But I think that like the average consumer is more musical than the creator of music kind of gives them credit for. I think that like again, it goes back to like a soul thing. It goes back to like a resonance thing. Like people are kind of tired right now of everything sounding overly digital or overly just trap. Like they want to hear, you know, they want to hear that hybrid, I would say. The blend, whatever we love about music now, which is like hard hitting, you know, sonically, I think music has never sounded better or more clear or loud, but you lose other elements, you know. So I think like people are scared, like, oh, you know, people just want quick, their attention spans, whatever. But I mean, my whole entire like social media career is based on the fact that people actually love that. People that don't play guitar love to hear a solo in something, you know. And they worked in the 80s. I think we're in another 80s right now, a little bit almost.
A little bit, yeah. Fads, it's like what, every 10, 15 years?
Everything. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It kind of all cycles, right?
I was listening to Tarantino on an interview talk about that. Quentin Tarantino, who's on a Joe Rogan podcast, and he was talking about how like we're in another 80s right now, and like he said, it was very politically correct in the 80s, and I find it to be like that right now too. You know, everyone's scared to do or say anything, and
Yeah. I like your comment about creators, I guess, not giving enough musical credit to listeners. And I think today, how the music industry has like a giant paradigm shift in how we consume music. Everything's streamed. Labels are becoming a little bit less relevant because it's so easy to distribute your music independently now. We are our own curators of music, right? So we have to have actually a very good ear to figure out what we like and don't like because we are essentially our own label, right?
absolutely, yeah, yeah. It's you see that with like user made playlists, and you see that with who becomes famous by the volition of their fan, you know, like versus a push. You see who just naturally rises to the top. You know, real talent has a shot thanks to the internet. Again, there was like a little spot where real talent, a Lizzo, wouldn't have been a superstar because of her weight or her, you know, the color of her skin or the combination of those things. Like a corporate label would be like, no, she's not Britney Spears, she can't be a star, and they tell you that too, and it's very sad, and it's not true, you know. And we're seeing that it's not true now, that anybody can you know, can be what they, with whatever their dream is, you know, like it can happen.
Yeah. Same thing happened with Justin Bieber, YouTube. Billie Eilish,
Yeah,
same sort of way.
yeah.
I would say just put your music out there and keep practicing and find your identity, and hopefully good things will come.
Art is about, you know, and in our case music is about an expression of, it's your expression, you know. It's like how you express yourself. It's just a little small expression of the human experience. So if you have that, odds are someone else has that, you know. So like if you're like, you know, if you're like, damn, like I can't wait to be an artist one day when I'm cool and when I get girls and when I have money and when I have a car, you know, that's that, you know, you're skipping on all the people that are trying to get there too. You can put music out in your experience now. Like Drake, I believe Drake was huge because of that. Like now he's that guy, but he wasn't always that guy, and he made music for people who weren't always that guy. You know, he made music for just like the
That's
average
right.
experience, someone who talks about their emotions or, you know, a relationship or something like that. So yeah.
Drake's really interesting because I yeah, he's kind of like what, hip hop?
Yeah, I
I
would
guess would
say
you say
I
like
would say
hip
so.
hop kind
And
of?
then like you know, I look at Drake as like, people say like, oh, Drake's like, you know, top whatever rapper, and I just consider him a top artist, you know, because he sings, he brings in songwriters. People judge him for that, but you know, Nobody was judging Michael Jackson for singing fully written songs by Floetry. You know what I mean? Like he did Butterflies. Marsha Ambrosius, I'm pretty sure she wrote the whole thing, and he just cut it exactly how. And or Rihanna did the Tame Impala. I forget the name of the song now, but she did it like verbatim. Dun, 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 dun. If you're seeing that, it's like if these super mega stars could do that, why can't you? As he's a rapper. But anyway, yeah, I think that he's just overall, an artist.
Do you think that rappers are today's rock stars?
Yeah, definitely. Just the drugs alone, the drug use alone.
Because I'm thinking back to like the 80s and 90s when rock stars were like Motley Crue, Kiss, that kind of stuff. And it was definitely that mentality. Like, I'm going to grab a whole bunch of girls and we're going to do a bunch of drugs.
Tight clothes.
And be barely caught. Like, look at Ozzy Osbourne right now. Like, holy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I watched an interview with him lately. And
I haven't seen him lately.
Someone asked him just point blank, "Are you sober now?" And he looked at the camera and he's like, "Well, yeah," and just like did his Aussie mumble for 13 seconds, and then she was like, "Okay,
take that as a no."
We'll take that as a big no.
Man, yeah, I read something that Harvard did a study on Ozzy. Or maybe not Harvard, my bad. It was like a school though, and they did like some study on Ozzy Osbourne and how his DNA like changed around drugs, like something crazy about how he should be like dead type shit. Like his wife was like, if there was a Holocaust, I'm sorry, not a Holocaust, but what's it when it's when the world ends? Sorry, I mean.
An apocalypse.
The apocalypse, it would be him and cockroaches. That's what she said. Something like that.
Just Ozzy.
Hey, he sounded great on Post Malone's record, though. He sounded like fantastic to me. Like a lot of people come back.
I don't know how he does it, where he just channels his inner youth.
He saves all his words for singing.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Like if you hear singers that have heavy accents, like let's say like a hard UK British accent, and a lot of like UK rappers kind of have that too, right?
Mm-hmm.
When they sing, it's gone.
Yeah,
you can't hear it at all. Like if you hear Paul McCartney sing, there's no British accent.
It's so true.
He sounds just like pure.
I've never understood that. Yeah,
because I think it's a different part of your brain.
I think so.
That, like when you combine it with music, like something else happens, right? So I think that's why Ozzy, despite all of the drugs and horrendous things that have probably gone into that body, can still sing, right?
Absolutely. It's amazing. I mean, my great aunt had some form of dementia. I wasn't that close to her, but I remember her going through it and not remembering who I was and who anyone in the family was, but she remembered how to play the accordion from years ago, like years and years ago. It's like, how do you remember how to play a challenging song or a challenging instrument, but you don't remember like people you saw every couple, you know what I mean? Like people, like it's amazing. So I mean, it almost has that sub-layer power. Yeah,
totally. It's like a subconscious, like it's just different circuits in your brain.
Mm-hmm.
And music just hits a lot of that. Like music is just so important for brain development.
Absolutely. It's like a memory tool and everything. Yeah, exactly. Like they teach us like our alphabet and things like that. Like it's literally to a melody, now that I think about it, it's like A, B, C, D, E,
F. That's right. And just remembering riffs, like as a guitar player, right? Like you kind of chunkify it and you're like, okay, I'm going to learn this part of the riff and then get that down. And then your brain kind of works on how to transition that to the next chunk.
It's so true. It's a library, like a riff library.
It's a library. Like you're remembering certain aspects and certain riffs here and there. That's just super fascinating how the brain works. And nobody really understands still how it works.
Yeah, absolutely. Just like, I don't know, I didn't read into it, but I saw Elon Musk, of course, is trying to like beam music into people's heads or something. And he wants to come up with technology that, you can transmit the frequency. And I'm not sure how I feel about that.
Is this part of his brain interface?
Something. I don't know. it was somewhere along the way. I can't really like confirm or deny the truth of it, but it was something along the lines of like he wants to be able to beam music directly into somebody's head. And I thought that was interesting because I like the aspect of feeling music. You know, like how like deaf individuals will go to a concert to feel. It's like they can't actually hear, but they go to a concert to feel the vibrations and stuff.
I think so. Like, I know what you're talking about when you go to a live show and there's just something magical about it. I think it's the difference between consuming consuming video on Netflix versus going into a giant surround sound movie theater with the massive screen. It's an experience. Like, you're going there to have a full experience, right? And the dude beside you chewing popcorn really loud and sleeping.
I'm like, why is this baby in this R-rated movie right now?
But with music, same deal, right? Like, I can be at my computer or on a run listening to music, but I go to a live show because I want to see them live. And two, it just feels like a more complete experience. Like, I actually feel like I'm experiencing something firsthand. It does feel magical.
Absolutely. I think something in the future would be, you know, music, like audiophiles, like people who really love music. You'll see more people, you know, like I have my speakers set up here and stuff like that. I get to experience music at like a more banging level than a lot of people on average, just because of like the speakers I own and stuff. But imagine being in some type of room where you can immerse a little bit, like some type of mattress or something, you know, and it's all hooked up. And if you know, like that would be cool. I think in the future people might listen to music a little more. There's something coming out now where it's surround sound. They headphones and stuff like that. You know, you figure.
Yeah, that's really, they do that for video games, so you can like hear people's footsteps and spatial
it's crazy.
awareness.
That's like literally like I play COD here and there, and it's like a big aspect of it, of playing is like hearing someone run up on you or something.
Cool. Another thing that I wanted to ask you is on your TikTok, you had a link to sample packs, and I was wondering, like, how do you go about making one of those?
I actually started a sample company with 3 other of my friends. It's called Luxury Lane Library. And really got to credit my buddy Icy. His name's Icy Red. He's a dope producer. He's also got a pretty good following on TikTok, and he does like remixes, like he'll do like drill remixes to R&B songs and just cool stuff like that. And he was like, yo, we gotta make samples. We gotta get into the sample game. And I'm like, I already, you know, I don't know, like I think I do that already, you know, because I've been producing for a long time. He's a little younger, but he showed me like there's like a science to it, you know. There's more than just making, like, it's more than just laying down like 4 chords, calling it a day, you know, and sending it to a producer. So you know, for me, some of the science behind it was like just figuring out how to maintain the, like, a producer has to hear this, or a songwriter, but mainly a producer, like being like, oh my God, I want to work on that right now. I want to make a beat out of that right now. You have to have that like hook factor in. So it's just more than just like, you know, so usually like you start with like a melody overlaid on some chords or something like that, and then deconstruct from there. I'm like a little older school with the production. So I always was taught, you know, you start here, you build up throughout the song. So like a sample is like reverse. It's like, here's like the whole thing and then just the chords if you want, you know, like just to capture people's attention. But as far as going about it, I just did like a little market research. I saw that like most of them have 10. It took me forever to make the first one, and now like I'm making different ones quicker. I did one with my girlfriend recently, which is really cool. But basically you pick a theme, I mean, or not, you know, it's kind of like whatever rules you want.
Is it a specific tone that you're trying to capture? Like, for example, if you're writing samples for hip hop, like what's a hip hop tone?
So like I think about the role that the sample played in the genre or whatever. So like, let's say like true hip hop, right? Like not even like trap music, like just like Kanye. Like my buddy and I thought about, what did Kanye sample? You know, Motown stuff a lot of the time. So we went back and we made a pack called Time in a Bottle. And it's Motown inspired. So it's not just guitar, it has guitar, but it's like literally like the songs, the feeling of a songs from the era. And each sample kind of goes up in time. It's 1960, early 60s, 70s, and then late 70s. And then we'll do one that's like 80s to 90s and shit like that.
I remember that was super popular for drum beats. Like the Amen breakbeat is used
Yeah, it's
everywhere.
crazy.
Like from jungle, drum and bass. It's absolutely everywhere. And it's sampled from some vinyl in like the
Yeah, I
70s.
saw this documentary on something. I forget what song it was. But it was like the most sampled song. It's like enough. There's enough. Like it was sampled enough to make a documentary about it. I can't remember the song.
So with samples, where you're kind of you're giving people templates to work with in their songs, right? Do you think that hip hop is just recycling guitar, or do you think that it's pushing its boundaries?
I think it just happens like slower than we want to from the outside. Like so, like if hip hop itself was an entity, then it cycles through sounds a lot slower than the creators inside of it, if that makes any wild sense at all. Like what I mean is like hip hop as a whole doesn't seem like it's evolved as much over the course of like even 10 years. You still have the similar hi-hats and, 808s and stuff like that. And then like something, maybe it was like really piano-y at one time. And now it's like guitar-ish,
I'm thinking of Dr. Dre. The
Yeah, exactly. And then again, like when like Lex Luger was popular and Rick Ross, and it was like classical trap was happening, like that doesn't happen anymore.
What is classical
Like
trap?
it was like they were sampling like royalty free classical records, and so they're dark and like avant-garde sounding, and like Lex Luger would sample like sections of and then it made a certain genre. You don't hear it anymore, but the drums kind of stuck. So yeah, there's a ton of recycling. I think hip hop was founded on that, almost like it was founded on sampling for sure.
Right.
R&B is like more so just an evolution of blues and gospel and soul music, but hip hop is like super based on sampling. Like, and then there was a time period where music got cheesy, like early 2000s, like in the 90s, there was a lot of heavy hip hop was kind of being born. There was heavy sampling going on. Then the labels and the owners of the masters of these records started to charge an arm and a leg for the use of these samples. And then people stopped sampling, and not altogether, but it slowed down, and you had like the South started to rise, and it was like boom, boom, bing, boom, 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 boom. That's like a whole beat, Laffy Taffy, it's like a whole beat, and it's like simple, and now it's grown again. And I think producer made and musician made samples are like helping that happen. Now you see, you're like, you listen to J. Cole dropped a single and people were like, oh, that sounds like a James Brown type vibe, but it was like some guy just made the sample, and then his producer used the sample, a T-minus or somebody. So it's like the name of the game if you're a musician and you want to break in to production. It used to be like for me, I kind of like put the guitar down for a while and learned how to be like good at making drums and good at making beats all together and stuff, because I wanted to compete as a producer, not just a guitar player. But now you can exist, I think, in the world and just stay a guitar player and just make samples, So it's pretty cool. I encourage all musicians to learn that avenue a little bit.
Do you think that taking a little sabbatical from guitar, I'll call it a sabbatical, taking a little break and kind of exploring other instruments and other avenues in music, do you feel like that made you a better guitarist?
1,000,000%. I even intentionally would, like, I don't do this as much now, but when I was younger, I would be like collecting riffs for my riff library, my mental riff library. So most people do it laterally to other guitar players, like, oh, Slash does that. I'm going to take my favorite Slash one, take my favorite one from Steve Vai, my favorite one from Carlos Santana, whoever. But you end up sounding like them or a mixture of them, which is fine. It's just how inspiration works. But it's like if you pull from a saxophone player or a piano player and you try to like literally figure out a chord that a piano player is playing, you're going to end up with something like completely different expression than like what other guitar players, So I would study saxophone players and a lot of singers, I think I've gotten like comments that it sounds like a vocal, like my guitar could sound like a vocal.
I have a note here. Like, it sounded like the talk box from Chromeo. If you know
Yeah,
who
I do.
Chromeo
Some
is.
people say I actually look like one of those guys in Chromeo.
Yeah, you totally do. It's tripping me out right now. So they have a talk box where it's like a synthesizer keyboard, and then it has a plastic tube that comes out of it that sits in the vocalist's
Yeah,
mouth.
I have one. I don't have it
and
on
it
me.
controls like aspects of it. Yeah, and I don't know like what you've done to your guitar tone to make it sound like almost a talk box. Like I don't really know.
Man, I'll go over the whole. I don't even mind sharing the whole thing. I've like typed it out for people in my comments before. It's a common question, but I use Ottawa plugin actually on my computer, and I put it before. Well, I've done it a couple different ways, but how I have it now is just like it's happening before the amp. So I have like a preamp, like physical hardware. It's called the it's made by Chandler Limited. It's Red 47 is what it's called. And it's just like a really solid preamp. Apparently the Beatles used to use like it's like an Abbey Roads emulator. So apparently the Beatles used to use it and like push the gain instead of using an amp. They would get distortion that way.
They would do like the analog side of it. So it'd be like
so I have that instead of an actual guitar amp. Like I mean I this is just for like studio stuff. So I have that going into and I like the Neural DSP stuff, the plugin. I use the Corey Wong one right now. And I'll also use Guitar X6, which is dope.
How did you arrive at this setup? Like what sort of experimentation went on where you're like, yes, this is the tone? And did you have like a bunch of iterations of that where you're like, nah, this isn't me? Or
I never really felt like something wasn't me, but I felt when I found the auto wah with distortion, and I was playing through this at the time, like when I discovered it. This is a Baker guitar, and like it has like such serious like sustain and like pickup. It just has a lot of gain, and it like drove the auto wah a certain way. Like it really like hit it. It makes it like activate. And then same thing, I have the 64 Strat pickups and the Lollers. So I have those in my Strat, and like same thing, like a regular Strat might not like push the auto wah. You have to like mess with the sensitivity and stuff, but because it's such a gain heavy setups, like it just, it drove it. And I think it's that going through the distortion. So it's like wah, then distortion, not distortion, then wah. Like in your chain, it kind of matters.
Interesting. I would have done it distortion, then wah. Yeah.
You can hear the difference.
Cool.
And then
so was it a fuck up the first time that
probably
you did it?
I was probably like, I think it was like me being a producer and being like, oh, plugins, like the order of plugins matter. Like I consider myself, even though guitar is like how I got into music, I kind of consider myself a producer over a guitar player, even though I stand out as a guitar player. I understand that about myself, but I think that having the producer mind, like I'll be on stage and I'm still thinking like a producer, like let me not outshine the singer right now. Let me, whereas like a lot of guitar players are just fucking show offs, we could all be, but
I've noticed that about your TikTok videos. Like you can shred. That's obvious, but you don't in certain places because you're really trying to make it sit correctly in the music.
Absolutely.
Right?
I care a lot about that. Yeah. I think it becomes noise, I would go to like these jam sessions and like these guys are like playing drums and they're amazing, right? They're like doing all this stuff that's like off beat and doing this and then coming back in on the one, and it's like, wow. But if you don't know, it just sounds like absolute noise, and I think it's the same thing. Like we hear shredding, we're like, wow, that's really impressive. But like somebody who wants to just feel something, if it's like the whole time, that's what it sounds like. Video games or music or something, and I had a few teachers, but somebody who left the impact, this guy named Curtis, he was a guitar player at my church when I was young. I went to like a mega church when I was young, and that's kind of how I got some cool experience too, playing. But this guy was like I used to love blues, but I used to play fast, and he used to be like, "Hey man, you don't always gotta play fast, bro." And like that little sentence, like I was like, I don't, like it changed the vibes, and I learned about finding the pockets. And I had another music teacher in high school that said music is controlled silence. And I was like, oh shit, yeah. So now I think about like when not to play too. Yeah.
That's a really cool outlook on it. I love that.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
So have you just given up on amps altogether? Like you just don't use them anymore?
I mean, if I play live, I have like this PV one. I play so it's like, I don't know, it looks like a tweed. I don't even know the name of it. Like I'm like a bad guitar player in the sense of gear. Like I used to not know what kind of pickups I had because I bought my guitar used, and like I'm very more about the music than like how like there's guys that are gear heads but they're like not that great at playing. Like I'm the opposite. I'm like a solid player, but like a lot of the times I'm like I don't even know, man. I don't even know. So I don't know like the latest amps and stuff like that. I have like, it's a tube amp. It's like a Fender replica, but it's made by PV basically. And yeah, I use it. It's in my car right now, and I use it for when I rarely play live, because even that is something I haven't done that much these days, especially because of coronavirus.
Nice. So do you feel like the whole exploration of your tone and kind of like nailing down your identity as a guitarist and what you want your brand to sound like, because you have a very specific brand. Like now if I listen to a guitar solo, I'm gonna know it's you, just because I know. Do you feel like that helped you land gigs with bigger guitarists? Like you're part of Gummy Worms, the virtual band, and you guys teamed up with Doja Cat for the Grammys as her band, which is freaking incredible.
Thank you for noticing.
How did you land that? Like, how does that happen?
Man, I mean,
that's
the power of
dream.
It really is. It's like the power of social media. Like, because back in the day, man, I'm trying to think. It might have been YouTube, which I don't really utilize as much as I honestly should to this day. But I was like doing it a little bit more back then. It was either YouTube or Vine or both. But I was putting myself out there and playing, just trying to get as many gigs as I could. And man, this dude DJ like reached out to me on Facebook. It was Facebook too. I might have been like me sharing my YouTube stuff on Facebook. But man, social media and like just put myself out there. These guys were like, look, we're up here. We're all at Berkeley. I think I was still in high school, or I was about to graduate high school. And they were like, we don't have a guitar player though, and we love your vibe. Like, can you, and we had never met in real life for years. And then we did a real life gig together in LA one time. But it was cool to do the Grammys that way because that's how we started. So honestly, that wasn't because of notoriety on TikTok or Instagram or anything. That was because it's like I've been cool with those guys for like 10 years. And then he got the gig, the drummer. Yeah.
So did you like when you recorded for the Grammys, were you guys physically at the Grammys, or did you guys?
No, I was in my boxers at my crib right here.
You're just sitting there making music for Doja Cat in your boxers. You're like, yeah,
just super chill, just vibing. And like, I'm weird, man. Like I love people. I love being out. I love doing things and traveling and stuff. But I'm also like quite a homebody, and like I love my peace and quiet and like simplicity and like low stress environment. So like I almost like want to do all my gigs like that,
That's got to feel so surreal to have your work displayed at that level of notoriety.
It was crazy, man.
But at the same time, you're also like not there on stage, so you're not really getting that like recognition at the same time. So it must be like a I don't know, it's a mind mess a little bit. Hey,
it was a little bit like interesting to explain that to people. Like you understand that right away, but like I was trying to explain, like my aunt texted me. She was like, "Say hi to Post Malone for me," and I was like, I wish I could, but this is how. And I felt like that might have been like disappointing, but it wasn't, at all. Like it was cool. It was cool.
Like I can't right now because I'm in boxers.
It'd be weird.
It'd be weird. Go up, give Dave Grohl a hug in your boxers.
I know, right? I should definitely do that now. At the real Grammys.
Just go to your boxers. This is how I feel comfortable.
I feel like I'm at home right now. Yeah.
You've also worked with Pitbull before, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, what was that like?
He's very like I don't know if he is, but it seemed like he's almost elusive in a sense, which I think if you're at that level, you kind of have to be. But I never met him before, and I'm trying to think. I probably have like 7 or 8 songs with him released, and maybe 10 to 15 total unreleased. But I just got close with his DJ and his keyboard player, and another buddy of mine introduced me. His name is Johnny Boy. He introduced me to them, and we worked down at Circle House in Miami. So it was really a product of Johnny Boy being an engineer at Circle House, me being cool with Johnny Boy, me being more musical, Johnny being more sonic oriented, us coming together making like a dope sound and working with them, you know. So I'm even in a music video with Pitbull, but I didn't meet him. Like he shot it at a different time, and it was more circumstantial than him like not wanting to. You know, it wasn't anything like that, like him being Hollywood or anything at all. But it's just like circumstantial. So I just haven't met him yet, but I will. I know I will. But honestly, I have to say, I was just telling my friend this. The only pretty much time that I've gotten paid before a song has come out and gotten a contract before a song has come out is with Pitbull. He does business the way it should be done. And every other artist that I've like worked with all respect to them, but the label it's been like sometimes 8 months after the song's out. It's crazy, you know, where you get paid and a contract and stuff like that. So shout out Pitbull. Yeah.
Shout out to Pitbull, my man Pitbull. So for new guitarists out there, would you recommend kind of going down the producer route or kind of following the whole rock star dream? Like what do you think is more viable for the music industry in this day and age to make money and do that
You
full
know,
time?
somebody told me, like advice was given to me to do both, and I didn't really listen. I went the producer route because it just was more what I wanted, you know. And I was just like, I make my rules. People, maybe it would have been better to be, but it's like a kind of a personality thing at the end of the day too, you know. And if you want to be out there and you're young and you're like, I want to see as many states and countries and women or whatever you're into, you know, like that's for you. That's for you. You know, for me, I've always been like, I always been a creator. So I've been like, I got tired of playing other people's music quickly. And I was just like, I want to create music. So I would say like the best advice is to realize that there's not a rule to how you can be a guitarist. You can exist in a lot of ways. You could be like, something I'm going to do more of now that I have more of a platform is like release instrumental albums, you know, like you can make money off that. You can get those things synced and make money off that again, you know. So streaming and sync, you can make loops. You could be like a guy who only tours but he also sits there and make loops. So maybe you don't understand formatting and songwriting and drum programming and bass lines and stuff and sonic design, but you make decent recording loops, and you know, Murder Beats makes a loop out of it. Boom, platinum. You're a platinum producer now, you know. So you know, there's something for everybody for sure. And I would say just do what sits well with you, you know. Like a lot of people try to say there's one way to do whatever, even artistry, you know, even being an artist and singing and whatnot and stuff like that. Like, you know, you could do it any way you want. Like the Gorillas didn't even show themselves. There's cartoons, you know.
Yeah, actually, when I read about your band, about Gummy Worms, I saw a virtual band. And I was like, wait, like the
I know.
gorillas, like they're all avatars.
That'd be cool, man. I wish. One day I'll have a secret side project where I'm like a cartoon and you'll know it's me, but no one else will.
Nice. So what's like when you're joining a band? So you started homeschooled, right? So you didn't necessarily meet up with kids in like junior high or high school or something and kick a band off, right? And even now you're in a virtual band with people that you know you've met a handful of times. How do you go about finding those people to start a band, and when do you feel like you're ready to start?
Man, it's all about like um being like on an equal playing, like a relatively level playing field. So if you guys are all like mid level, you know, uh, players, then you're good because you're gonna like grow together. But if like one person is like a freaking virtuoso and everyone else is whatever, that person is gonna be pulling the weight. Everyone else is gonna feel like they're not good enough, and you know that kind of thing. So I would say just find people you're equally matched with. And nowadays the internet is just like the answer to even in your area, like to find people in your area. I don't know. I mean, I went to a big church when I was young though, so it was multi-denominational, which is like, so it wasn't Catholic, it wasn't gospel, it was just like they just tried to be very
Wait,
modern.
you said it was a mega
Yeah,
church,
it was like
right?
2,000, 2,500 members, something like that. And this was in Connecticut, and I met a lot of like gospel guys through that. Like there were people from the surrounding inner cities that played gospel music, and like I was 16 years old. I was into blues and I was into rock music, and they were like, "Yo, we got to bring you to a shed." And I was like, "What is a shed?" Like my dad has one in the backyard. Like what? And it meant jam session, and it was set up like 3 or 4 different drum sets, 2 or 4 bass cabs. There was always less guitar players than anything for whatever reason, but there are keyboards and sometimes vocalists or whatever. And we would just get together and just jam, and you would literally show the fuck off. Like you would just try to, and when it was your turn, you would just go crazy, and people would be like, "Whoa, oh my god!" And that feedback, it was just like it made you want to be disgusting at your instrument, But that's how I got exposed to gospel, and a lot of gospel musicians got hired for R&B gigs, and that's how I got more exposed to playing R&B, So it's all through. It was kind of all through the church, ironically. But yeah, it's just whatever network you're in, like you're gonna find some musicians tend to attract each other. It's weird.
It's true. Like all artist types, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah.
Yeah,
You're
that's
like,
what
oh,
I found too.
you're not a normal person. Like I like you.
You're for me. Get in my band.
Yeah.
So, what do you like better? Do you like being in a virtual band, or do you like in-person band better? Well, I know you get to wear your boxers in the virtual band, so that's cool, right? Show up at band
Right,
practice.
exactly. A little bit of both, because I enjoy like doing the Grammys that way. I probably would say that I still would enjoy doing it that way, because I'm a human, man. I would get freaking nervous as hell being on the Grammys. Like no matter what, no matter how many followers or how many people. I've played in front of like 20,000 people before, and I played on BET as well, which is broadcasted to millions of people. Actually, a few different TV shows, but like the Grammys, it would just be like I would just know that everyone was watching me, and that alone is like, crazy pressure, man. It's being recorded.
It's high stakes.
It's high stakes, man.
Say.
Yeah, I still would absolutely do it. I would take a solo on the front stage, if I was given the opportunity. But
if you had to be live at the Grammys and you have to step up for your solo, what's your mental preparation? How do you do it? I don't know if I could take the pressure.
I think I'm like experienced enough in just being a player, like knowing like when I solo, I rarely think too much, so I would probably have like an idea of what I want to do, but I probably wouldn't set it in stone, because then I would just establish something that I could get wrong versus like I'm just going to freestyle it. So I think I would freestyle it, honestly. Even if it was like my generic go-to licks, I would probably just do that and do a lot of bends and make a lot of faces and just feel it,
Nice. Have you seen that YouTube video with it's this kind of younger guitarist, and he's going over the guitarist stank face, and he's explaining like, all right, when you do a bend, imagine you're smelling just the rankest smell in the
I need
world.
to
Like
see
it's
that.
foul cheese, it's bad
I get
socks.
commented on that so much. Some people are literally like, ew, his faces are so ugly, and I'm just like, thank you for the boosting my algorithm, but like it's funny though, man. Like it's like a polarizing thing just to make faces. You would never think it, because it started off me just genuinely feeling it, and then after a while, like I noticed people comment on it, and I'm like, oh, some people don't know what this is. Yeah, people are literally like, why is he making those faces though? And other people will jump in and defend me for me. I don't even have to say anything. They're like, you don't even know about stank face. Like
It's a thing though. I don't like when I play guitar, my wife sometimes looks at me and she's like, was that?
You're right.
What are you doing? I'm like, I don't know. I'm bending the strings. I don't control my face when I'm doing that.
No, definitely not. Definitely. I make weird, strange faces for sure.
Going back to what we were talking about before with like your neural pathways just being different for while you're playing music, like it's a subconscious kind of thing. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like the best guitar that I play is when I'm half zoned out and I'm not overly thinking. And you said this before too. You're like, when I'm not turned on my brain so much while I'm playing something, I play better and I feel like I'm in the zone better. And I feel exactly the same way.
I think I have some theories on that. I believe producing music is kind of a similar thing, and my theory is that you have to do the work to build up your library, your skill set, your ability to play. Like learn as many scales, as many chords, because it gives you the freedom to zone the hell out. So it's like it's kind of like both. Like some people think like, oh, are you just a freestyler or do you know theory or whatever? I'm like, it kind of helps to be everything because it gives you that freedom, but I believe that like whether it's spiritual or just energetic or anything like that, I believe that like the best art is like channeled more or less. I don't know from where, from what. Maybe you could channel Jimi Hendrix, like the soul, or maybe you could channel whatever energy he was channeling, right? However, whatever you believe. Without getting weird, I just think like when you zone out and you're in the flow state, you're channeling something. It's happening. And I think like almost all the greatest artists in the world don't take full credit. They're like, oh man, I was just zoning, but you can take credit for what you've learned. But in that moment, you're just basically being a vessel for music itself. People say like the best songs write themselves and stuff.
Yeah. No, that's true. Yeah. I mean, so over the course of your career, like what do you think is your biggest accomplishment? And then what's your guitar dream? Like what's your next step? Is it Justin Bieber calling you up and saying, I got this new track, I need a solo on it?
That's one of them. That's for sure. Like I'm waiting for the huge hit record that like I'm doing the solo on, I mean, it sounds cocky, but I've heard a few different solos come out and I've been like, dang, they should have called me. Cause it's just, you know what I mean?
You're like Batman,
or they should have called me, or they should have called Steve Vai, or someone, but like, don't use like a middle with crappy tone and digital rolling. No, it's no offense to Roland, but like some old Roland pedal sounding plugged in, you know what I mean? Like just something like digital sound, you hear that a lot in like hip hop and stuff. I'm like, man, I could have done it.
We need like a GBliz bat signal that people can shoot up in the sky. Call GBliz for a solo, and it's just what would it be? Like silver teeth, something like that.
Something. I mean, I love my. So Blizman is my last name, and it means lightning man. So I always like have like the the lightning bolt everywhere. I usually use emoji, so maybe it would be some type of lightning bolt, a lightning bolt with teeth. I don't know.
You a fan of Thor?
Yeah, definitely. We were joking
Thor?
around like,
nice.
Who would be what Avenger, and everyone always says I'd be Thor, just because of the weather control.
Because Blizman. Yeah. That's a sweet last name, man.
Thank you. I feel I'm honored to have that. I think it plays a big part of like who I am.
Well, that's awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the cast. Really appreciate it. It was great to get to know you and hear about your guitar journey. And such a pleasure. Thanks for coming on.
Man, absolutely. Anytime. It was absolute pleasure.